Welcome to Chronicles of Old Singapore. This is Dr Loh KS, and I speak to people on their memories of Singapore before it became a global city. Do like the video and subscribe for future episodes. This will help the channel a lot. Very happy to have with us and to introduce Mr. Winston Wong this morning. How are you, Winston?
Okay, Dr. Loh KS, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on. This podcast is only possible because of Rebecca's, your daughter's help and assistance to set up the whole technology and equipment and all that. Very much looking forward today to really focus on Winston's long career, right, in the SAF and subsequently in security. So there's a lot for us to go through, and we are going to listen to his memories, but also we are going to look at some of the sketches of his memories of being in the SAF, and particularly on Sentosa, where he was based for quite some time. Winston, I'm going to start by asking you, how long were you in the SAF?
Yeah, I was attracted to join the SAF in 1965. The reason was basically after leaving school, and at that point in time, there was a unit deployed at Fair Park where I live, across at Racecourse Road. The unit was displaced. It was 2 SIR thing after their deployment at Sabah during the confrontation. So it was a few camp actually, very open concept, and I find it's very unfair because their camp was occupied by the Malaysians. So I make friends with them, and we play games at the Farrer Park football field. So I get some attachment to the army, because they do also drill and whatever training, limit training at the field. So when SAF opened up for recruitment, so I felt it may be a good opportunity for me to go into that career.
Okay, so can I clarify, had you finished your national service already in 1965?
No, actually, I was not, recruited as a national service, personnel because my age. I was
Right.
born in 1947, but I joined as a regular with the SAFTI then because it was SAFTI was open around that period, 1965, 66. No, but it was not implemented yet at that point
Mm,
in time.
yeah.
Only after I joined SAFTI as an officer cadet, then subsequently it was made into law that
What aspects of the SAF attracted you?
I think SF was a requirement because we also heard of our problems that we don't have a regular army. In fact, at that point in time, the unit that was in existence, I think there was only two units. I mentioned two SRR and one SR. And the commanders and the troops are not really Singaporeans. They have a British commander, Malayan officers, and then most of the soldiers were from Malaysia, I would say, yeah. And the encouragement from the ministry that we should have to protect our own nation. So that's make a lot of us join the army.
What did your parents say when you told them?
They actually felt a bit mixed feeling because we never had any member of the family in the army. But then again, the choice of a career, either a teacher or some civil service post, which is not very appealing at that time, So army is a new dimension, and they basically agreed that it's a good, area to go into.
Right. Because pre-national service era, the Chinese, especially in Singapore, had this, how should we say, ambivalence or reluctance for their children to join the army, right? For their sons to join the army.
It's true, it's
Mm,
true.
mm,
So there was some sentiment like that,
mm,
but because they were not like so extreme as to think to the end that I will end up being nothing,
Yeah.
because the government convinced that there's a place in the army as a career, and the pay wasn't too bad when we start.
So when you first signed up as a regular, what was your posting? Did you have to go through a basic military training?
Yeah, it's the same, very strict, attitude tests and physical tests, and they didn't select everybody who apply because overcapacity. So for my case, I joined SAFTI in a batch of 300. That was the first intake by SAFTI, and obviously we did basic training, and after even some special training, only 150 were selected for officers cadet course because the school was very small. It's one company size. So the other 150 have to work as instructors. Yeah, so I was in the second batch, therefore.
I see. So the 300 were specifically for OCS, or was it just general training first and
For
then you
OCS,
decide?
yeah. For
Okay.
OCS, yeah. It's a career, you know, with the, like they call it the officer's career. So
Mm-mm-mm.
OCS, and then thereafter you successfully complete the course, you get commissioned as a second lieutenant.
Right. So 300 is actually quite a large number, right? So there was really a need for officers at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
So that was the urgent need. Yeah, because as I said, most of the unit then were commanded by foreigners.
Remember your first day in training?
Yeah, obviously, because I still remember the number
Mm.
6666. We were in Safti on the 1st of June. On the 6th, we started training. So to the day when 6th of June come about, I remember in 1966. So it's triple six.
What did you do that day?
Yeah, of course, it's very uh, traumatic because you get new participants. So you foreign, you don't know each other, you carry your belongings. That would be what you need for the next 1 or 2 months. And the regimentation starts from there. Lah. You find that you have to foreign, march here, march there in, whatever numbers. And of course, you cannot manage your own time. No, everything is managed by them. So that the feeling that you will be different for whatever time the training goes.
So this one was the old Safti, is it? Where's the location?
Yeah, it's Pasir Laba. So it's the
Ah,
original Safti. Of
right.
course, subsequently they upgrade and
Mm.
expand, but the buildings I think are still there. Yeah,
At the end of the first day, what was your thinking as you went to bed?
it is a mixed feeling, but I was
Mm.
committed, so I'm not like feeling sad or
Mm.
missing home. Yeah, at that moment in time after our schools, we were desperately trying to secure a job.
Mm. Mm.
So the options was the army. So I devote my full interest, commitment into it. So I don't feel too like dislocated.
To qualify as a officer cadet, right? What were the qualifications? Do you need A levels or something like that?
No, I left school with
Mm.
O level,
Mm.
and with that certificate, I could apply because there are, of course, more qualified participants in the 300. So that was a minority. Yeah.
Mm.
So in fact, there are a lot of other uniform officers from PSA, you know, the other auxiliary, uh, units and all
Uh,
that join.
uh,
So they are more experienced.
okay.
So that was a mixture.
So they would be older as well, right?
Yeah. So even some are inspectors, they join from
Uh,
police and all that. they felt army is a new career.
What was the pay as an officer cadet?
Not very much. I think it's 100 plus, that's all. But that was
Okay.
sufficient because you have the camp to rely on for food and accommodation and things like that.
So, were you the first batch then in 1966? Was this the first batch?
Yeah, I was deferred to second batch
Uh,
because of the numbers.
I
So
see.
they make me a specialist in demolition. I undergo training. And in fact, I was instrumental in training the first batch as a assistant instructor. I was helping with the lessons, and I was spotted by the specialist officers to, and they felt I could be nominated. So during the break, before embarking on the second batch, I was literally training with the British also. They have the unit still in Singapore, so we were doing demolition. The unit was uh 4 BAD, yeah, at the Kranji.
So this at this time, this was before the Israelis came to train our boys, right?
No, when we embark on the course, they are already
Yeah.
there, and
Okay.
we know that as Mexican, as you know.
Yes.
So we know they are fighting for the 6 Day War and survival and all that. So they were very serious, and training was very tough.
Can you explain that? Training was very tough. What did y'all
It
do?
was very tough because of the
Mm,
terrain in SAFTI.
mm,
So it's all very hilly, and the weather didn't help. So obviously, regimentation, you cannot drink water as and when you want it,
mm.
and that make it tougher.
Was Pengkang Hill in Pasir Laba?
But Penang is famous because it
Right.
overlook the camp. It's at a like a back door,
Mm,
feature, and that's where we fear most because it's not a very well vegetated hill. As such, it's very barren. So there's no cover, and then there are a lot of loose pebbles and stones. So running up, you can slip and fall.
I mean, how were the Israelis like? If you compare the Israelis with the British command, the instructors or the Singaporeans, were there any Singaporean instructors at this time?
Yeah, there were
Uh,
a batch of the older soldiers.
mm.
They were cross trained, and under the Israeli, as a special prep course, equip them with the necessary knowledge, and they were the assistant instructor with the Israeli.
If you compare the Israelis with the British and the Singaporean assistant instructors, when you say the Israelis were tough, can you give some examples? What how tough were they?
Yeah, the
Mm,
choice of advisor, they call them advisor,
mm,
were cross between commandos unit, infantry unit, or whatever, formation. So there's a cross of knowledge. So obviously, their commandos, they are trained to be very tough, and especially with our terrain, it becomes tougher because there is basically like a semi-desert, but ours is thick vegetation.
yeah.
So when we have to do the same climbing up a hill, we find it tougher here. And then also sense of mission. There's no compromise in whatever factors, so we struggle. And they are always on the move lah. So they are not like the British. They care about admin and feeding and water break and all that. So we find they are a bit different
Mm.
because, as I said, they are fighting a war at the same time in the Middle East.
Yeah, so maybe it's so not so much the training techniques or procedure, right? It's more the mentality they brought with them because they were fighting the war. They were super serious about the training. Is that how like it was?
Yeah, that was precisely the case
Mm,
because they
mm,
have sense of mission, and they also monitor what is happening in the 6 Day War and things like that. And obviously, they tell us stories, and they develop a lot of lesson learned. What best would be the approach to certain problems and things like that. So we learn a lot, yeah, on various tactics and where we deploy and how we operate.
Do you remember if they said anything, the Israelis, did they say anything about, from their experience, they're trying to teach you, they're trying to convey some lessons to you?
Yeah,
Mm,
it's almost 100% because
mm,
some of the materials they still carry the Israeli language. We noticed that certain training aids they use are actually from Israel because they have not developed it here yet. So from there we know, like some of the subjects, though for us is irrelevant, but they still taught us things like navigation by the stars and all that. The night, the
mm,
stars and whatever. Because here, not like in Israel, I've been to Israel several times,
yeah.
especially near the Negev Desert. You can navigate anywhere with the stars because the whole sky is stars. There's no thing blocking it. But here, often we have trees, we have thick, buildings and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Doesn't work as well, right?
yeah, yeah. So that we know that they are not mindful of the terrain here, and
Mm,
we learn a lot on navigation at night by stars, but it doesn't help at all. No, yeah,
uh,
there's other subjects too, lah. Yeah, because
mm.
our terrain a lot of water features and all that. So the way we move is so different. Some of the water features are concealed by vegetation, like farms with the hyacinth plants, over the pond. In fact, one or two of them fell into the pond because they thought it's all hard ground.
So they were also training in a way, right?
Yeah, in a way to adapt to our terrain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of their names?
Yeah, I remember
Mm,
Shafi,
mm.
Rafali, you know, they are commandos officers.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we work very close with them. Lah. Yeah. Especially when I specialize in demolition,
Mm.
they also help out, in how to use some of the equipment and also the various type of explosive.
Any thoughts about the memories about the British commanders? Did they train you? Did they?
Not at all. The British
No,
were
not
not
at all.
involved
Okay. Okay.
because they are words of withdrawal. You know, they were basically, withdrawing. But
Yes.
as I mentioned, I attended a course in, Kranji, where their ammo base was as a demolition field clearance officer then. So that was my contact with the British. But up to 1970, after I graduated, I become a bomb disposer. We also undertake naval diving. So I attended a course in HMS Terra, the diving
Mm,
unit,
mm.
and that was ship divers course to prepare for mine clearance diving, which later I specialized in.
Where was the passing out?
The passing out was in SAFTI,
Mm,
so it's quite grand, as you know, because
mm.
there are a lot of supporting contingents and you know a lot of fanfare lah. So parents were invited and very senior ministers and people like that were the guests of honor.
How did you feel on that day?
Of course, relief and proud because we could put on the rank, as a commission officer.
Mm.
Because at that time, commissioning is very special. Unlike now, I think they are appointed, they are not commissioned. So that carries a lot of weight, and you get a
Mm.
certificate and a sword.
What did you feel, right, at that moment from then onwards as an officer? How did you see yourself as an officer?
Obviously, there is a sense of
Mm,
responsibility because you immediately have men under your command and control, and they came from various walk of life. So you have to be mindful of how to treat them, and of course, we were always, asking for their support and cooperation because the units are very small. We don't have luxuries of huge unit now.
mm,
So I started like bomb disposal. We have only like, 5 or 6, national service men, and some might not be able to, you know, communicate in English. So you have to be very sensitive about, how we address them and, get them motivated.
So this would have been around 1968, right? When you
Yeah,
were
beyond that,
commissioned.
68. I
You
finished
were
my engineer's course,
mm,
which I was posted to in 68. Yeah.
yeah, you would have been like 21 years old, right?
Yeah, could be around there. And the recruits were, as you know, 18 beyond and all that. Yeah.
Did you have so as a kind of a commander, right? As a platoon commander, maybe did you feel did you have any models like anyone you remember in terms of leading the men, in terms of taking care of the men? Did you have any personal models?
Yeah, we do, read history a bit of the Second World War.
Yeah,
And there were some outstanding commanders, there were some very, aggressive, forward-looking commanders who care more about the mission than the men. So we
yeah,
have leadership training during the cadet course to featured on different character, could be British, could be Americans, even Japanese commanders like, um, Yamashita and all that,
mm,
some are good tacticians, but, they have their different, plus and minus. Yeah. So we study all this through this
mm,
series of lectures on, commanders.
yeah. I mean, not so much what you studied, right? But personally, what was your influence in terms of being a commander? It's not necessarily from the army itself.
No,
Also, it could be your
obviously, yeah,
teacher. It
because
could be your
those are
personal
very,
background,
yeah,
right?
big campaign
Yeah,
they lead, that
yeah,
we basically everyday requirements, we make sure their welfare is taken care of,
mm,
that, whatever they propose will be looked into. And most importantly, if they deserve time off, we give it to them. So we are not very like aggressive
mm,
to them in so much as you know ensuring they do the maximum before they go home and things like that, because
yeah,
they deserve after 1 week to go home. So we make sure that it's a smooth passage. No, like last minute, chore and then say no, not good enough, punish you and all that. That will be counterproductive,
mm.
because they work and earn it. So you don't take away anything like that from them.
Of course, the SAF was very different in that time. I did my NS like 25 years after you, and now we are 30 years after that, right? This is about 50, 60 years later on. So, what do you think, is the role of discipline and being regimental in the army? Is it still relevant?
Yeah, it's still relevant
Mm,
because respect for officers, their command, and also the chain of command is important, because we know that in between we have NCOs also, like assistant commanders. So you have to be very conscious to the fact that, whatever you issue as a command, it flows down smoothly, and if there's a problem, you can retrace where the problem
mm,
was, what the, level of the change. So
mm,
this will be the main factors, to ensure a smooth running of a unit.
mm,
You, of course, able to disseminate tasks rightfully, and then subsequently the various level could undertake it. So your role is to understand what is their capacity and whether they have a welfare problem. If you issue something which counter to what the
mm,
recruit like, so you cannot just mindset to say that this is the right thing to do, and this will cause a lot of difficulty for the other tier of command,
mm, mm,
because they cannot like reject your orders. So
mm,
you have to make sure that it's the right, orders that everybody could accept, without, or fear and favor, or, without any emotion, things like that.
Yes, I mean, this is quite interesting because I mean, I was never an officer, so I was a man. And as a man, you look at the chain of command quite differently from an officer, right? You are always kind of looking up and you kind of worried about what the commander wants you to do and being stressed about carrying out the instructions. But actually, if you are an officer and you are looking downwards, the perspective is quite different. You have got to get the soldiers to support you, the men to buy in, to do to the best of their ability. Was this something that you were always concerned about?
Yeah, that is a main concern because
Mm,
ultimately it's the men,
mm,
because they are mindful of how you feel about different situation by your issue of orders. So they know that it's unfair, fair, or you just want to
mm,
resolve a problem without thinking of how they will operate. So we always think of that reaction from the men, that whatever things he issue is fair and just, and also the morale factor, you know is the ultimate, because to motivate them to do further, if they have different attitude and morale because of your wrong issue of orders,
mm.
it will jeopardize the whole system.
Did you find out some ways, right? Some tips to raise the morale, to maintain the high morale of the men. What were some of the methods that you use?
No, first and foremost is a feedback, yeah,
Mm,
and also understanding the man, background. So you cannot like treat every man the same.
mm,
Some are weaker in certain things, and some would be, very hardworking and show quality of leadership. So you can actually react accordingly and try to bring up those who are less, worker to the forefront and motivate them. And then subsequently, you can give them tasks where they combine and work well and praise whatever situation, that came about. So this is both encouraging the middle tier and the men, to
mm.
perform to what you expect as a good mission or exercise.
So I want to talk now about the two main areas you were in the SAF, right? One was the bomb disposal, and the other one was naval diving. Both are really quite dangerous vocations.
Yeah, obviously they are. Yeah, in fact, every mission we go out
Mm,
disposing war relics or
mm,
and exploded bombs, or even later on a lot of IED, improvised explosive device by terrorists.
mm,
The risk is obviously there because the way explosive behave, and also the ingenuity of how to arm them, or booby trap them, is never ending. It's just like technology; you keep on increasing. So you have to be one step ahead, and of course be prepared, either with protective measures or contingency plan to make sure that your exposure is less.
mm,
The aim is not stay too long with the hazard. Is to do as fast as you could,
mm,
and if you can do it remotely, you do it. That's why the bomb disposal, later we purchased a robotic
uh,
wheelbarrow, which was the first robotic system in the market,
mm,
and that actually doesn't exempt you from the risk, but you know make you less exposed to the device because you don't have to go forward to recce. You can use a camera, you know, and then to bring about explosive charges to countercharge or what, you can use a robot, so you remain behind, but your exposure is still there when finally you have to, check
mm.
before detonating or things like that, So same as naval diving,
Yeah.
yeah, we have a lot of hazard because the environment is different. you go underwater with equipments. So the equipment must also satisfy the pressure. Different depth give different problem with gases you use. And of course, there's current, there's visibility, there's many things which you cannot anticipate until you go deep and see in the darkness the actual device. It could be a mine.
Okay, so I want to ask you about the war relics, right, as you put it. So these were from the Second World War, right?
This mostly
Yeah,
were accumulated during, yeah, the Second World War,
yeah,
and there are a lot of it because
yeah.
Singapore an island, so we were defending it. So in the course of defense, all the artillery position were more or less at the coastline. Some were deeper. Like in Mandai area and all that.
Mm.
And with the approaching enemy, the Japanese, a lot were fired. You know, but a lot also were dumb because we have troops from India, Punjab, and all that. They're not so motivated to defend Singapore. So a lot of dumb in the site they were deployed like Choa Chu Kang, Semulun area. In fact, I found 4 to 5 thousand shells dumped into the wetland.
Uh,
That means there's a retreat in disorder. You know, and we already found this war relics in the shallow water when fishermen were at Kalam Basin and their boats were there.
right.
So two explosions took place at the fishing vessel. And obviously, I was with bomb disposal. We do a
Oh,
post-blast investigation. Ask exactly why explosive were on board. So they recovered the explosive from war relics at Sarimun, and they use it for fishing. You know,
really?
yeah, in South China Sea. So exploded. I think one or two members died during that explosion,
Okay.
and they told us exactly the spot they recover the war relics. So it's a wetland in Semolun, the Boy Scout camp there. And most of this shell, 4,000, 5,000, were cut by them to extract the explosive.
Mm.
So they're not very like daring because it's explosive they cut. They know it's not fired because it's not fused, not fused. So there's no triggering device.
Right.
So they extracted the explosive and threw the empty shell back into the water. That's how we recovered. And from forensic, we know the troops actually retreat in disorder a lot.
Mm.
So if you into bomb disposal war relics, you can use it as a forensic to actually trace back the war
Yeah.
where
Right.
they are
Yes.
firing and how much was left behind, how much was dis- discarded, is disposed in boxes and all that. And the most relevant find was not too long ago at the Biopolis, when they built the science park and all that. They recovered few hundred boxes of ammunition, not fired. So that was one of the gun positions. So very interesting because whichever case we go, when forensic is done, we actually can, you know, get a storyline out of it, of how the
Mm.
troop behave.
Mm.
One significant case is I found a shot. A shot is a metal object, like a missile, that hits ships to sink them. There's no explosive, only a small tracer at the back. At night, you can see where it flies. So this was found at Pulau Tokong,
Mm.
you know. So we were quite amazed how this shell landed in Bokong because these are armor piercing. So it used to pierce ships and sink them. So later I studied the British deployment at the coastline, because it was all facing the coast. anticipating Japanese ships will come, you know. Instead, they came from Thailand, you see. So our shoreline were all with this ammunition stockpile.
Mm.
And this was fired and landed in Bokom. And that was basically some of the failure of the British positions. They were mindset that Japanese will come by ships, and they stockpile a lot of armor piercing, less shrapnels for infantry. So when the Japanese came from the north, they fire very few, fragmentation shells that will kill more troops on bicycle on that. But instead, they have to use the armor piercing, which is useless for soldiers. Yeah. So these are the forensic part which interests us a lot. We can tell the stories.
So was there a unit inside the bomb disposal force that was looking at this forensics?
No, we don't have a unit on forensic, but
Yeah.
because we are experienced enough, we know even the content of the explosive, though it's not recognizable as a shell, which country, who fired it, but we can tell from the explosive. Japanese use a lot of acrid, acid, picric acid, in their shell. And then these are more dangerous because they exude, that means they, in tropical weather, they emit liquid out of the shell. These are acid, and it crystallize into, particles. So we know if you handle with the hand, you get dermatitis, because of the acid. And then, of course, you rub it, you can explode because the crystal can spark off. So these are the forensic aspect we carry on ourselves. We teach each other, as we encounter different type of ordnance.
So was it an SOP actually for the bomb disposal group that when you discover these war relics, you don't just blow it up, right? That you actually
No,
want
no,
to
we
do
never,
some
never.
forensic study.
We only blow up when the situation allow. Like in a rural area like SAFTI, because SAFTI they are, well relics on the hill like Pengkang, and that's a remote area, so it's quite safe. You put sandbags around and things like that. But in actual urban area, we don't have this luxury. We still have to make safe whatever means you have, and careful with the handling, and move it to a disposal site. Like for instance, when we were located at Gilman Barracks, bomb disposal unit, I work out a disposal site at Alexandra Brickswork. It was a hillock area now. There, Alexandra Brickswork at the junction of, Alexandra Road and Pulau Blakang Road.
Yeah.
So we could make like a enclosure within the embankment, and then if need be, I'll move it there to do the counter charge explosion. It's very easy because we know the terrain. We know it's like block 3-sided, and then we can use sandbag on the open side. And at the same time, it's a junction. So when we carry out cordoning of vehicles, the police precisely know the SOP. Only Keppel Road and then Telok Blangah Road. And very quickly, within half an hour, we can dispose it. So unlike if you do it in situ, that means at the site, the traffic will be held back for half a day. You have to evacuate residents because there are buildings there. So these are the things we have to work and get approval by the police and all that.
I mean, you've been talking about the unexploded war relics that were dumped, right, during the war. We usually don't get to hear about this in the news. So what we usually hear about in the news are the bombs, right, that were dropped and they are found underground after some time. Have you dealt with those before also?
Yeah, I think post-war Singapore, we have a lot of this because we develop our land to build and all that. So every time there's excavation, they will find something. and we are mindful.
Mm.
Like for instance, they developed Changi Airport, so there were thousands of war relics because of the coastal defense, you know, and also incidentally, some war relics can be dredged from the sea. So obviously, when they're doing reclamation, of the extended coastline,
Yeah.
they drag and then backfill.
Mm.
So later, as the excavator go across, they find all these war relics. So I mounted an operation. We actually take care of about few thousand rounds at Changi Airport. Yeah.
These were fire rounds or dumped rounds?
No, war relics fired already.
Fire already.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because
Exploded already?
no, not
No,
exploded. Because
not
they dump in
exploded.
the sea,
Right.
whatever state of they are in, so the explosive actually dissolve,
Okay.
become safer. No,
Right.
some are fired, yeah, as I mentioned,
Okay.
because it's a mixture lah. Because we really know, exactly the unit that was responsible,
Mm.
because most of which are, in a corrosive stage.
Right. So, correct me if I'm wrong. So there were like a mixture of different kind of shells and ammunition, right? So some are fired, some are a bit more corrupted or eroded, so they are not so dangerous. But some are more live, right, in a sense.
Yeah,
So
more
how
like
how 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 do you go about establishing this when you find a site or a war relic? What is the methodology to approach it?
we can
Mm.
readily see whether it
Mm.
was fused or not. That means whether it's a tail fuse or front fuse, because these are the mechanism you add on before you fire
Mm.
for timing and impact or whatever, you know. So if there is a fuse, we treat it differently. We separate them, make it a sensitive device and in a enclosed area or cordon area, and there we will treat it with great care.
Mm.
And we can also like use X-ray to take images of the state of the fuse. Some fuse can be fired
Mm.
but malfunction. You know, some uh, totally new, so we know that they are discarded. Before firing. So these are the stages we'll do, and at every stage, obviously, we accord the procedures, meaning the ultimate that if it explodes, what will happen.
Mm.
So this is the precaution we take.
Yeah, I mean the precautions are absolutely necessary and important, right? So can I ask you, were there ever mistakes that were made?
Mistakes?
Mm.
No, we are very stringent,
Mm.
and we work as a body system. Like two men, so
Mm.
we are constantly, update each other, and then we have reference material. Though we don't have computer that time, but we make booklet, to what was expected. Japanese ordnance, British ordnance. Yeah, these are the two main, and then we make reference. And of course, the sensitivity part,
Mm.
we'll isolate it, and don't rush it.
That's good to hear.